The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinepodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinepodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille.
Welcome to this special Italian Wine Podcast broadcast. This episode is a recording off Clubhouse, the popular drop-in audio chat. This Clubhouse session was taken from the Wine Business Club and Italian Wine Club. Listen in as wine lovers and experts alike engage in some great conversation on a range of topics in wine. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinepodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. And remember to subscribe and rate our show wherever you tune in.
Okay, already. Hello, everybody. My name is Stevie Kim, and this is the Clubhouse edition of Italian Wine Podcast, what we call Ambassadors Corner. Basically, this is where our Italian wine ambassadors at large get to interview their favorite Italian wine producers. And we've been doing this for some time now. I'm in New York at the moment, and I think Laika's at the office in Verona. Ciao, Laika.
Hi, Stevie. Yes, I'm here in Verona.
Okay, so tell us how many episodes, how long have we been doing this exactly?
We have done, this is the 133rd episode so far.
And what's the program so far for this week? Do we have another podcast this week on Clubhouse?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot for this week and the next weeks because we're preparing everything and we don't want to go busy during the Vinitaly Marathon. So we are preparing everything in advance. This week is going to be, now we have Emilia Marinig interviewing Serena Gusmeri of Montefiore Wines, and then next on Thursday we're going to have another one, and also for the following week there are going to be two, so it's Tuesday, Thursday ideally. So yeah.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know yet, if you've been living under a rock, Laika she was the Clubhouse manager, backstage manager, but now is Giovanna doing that, Laika?
Yeah, she helps me out, and she's a big help.
Yes, and Giovanna is working from Ecuador. She was our intern in Verona. She went back to Ecuador, and she's still helping us with social media and also Clubhouse. And Laika used to be the Clubhouse manager, and she still is for the most part, but she is actually the podcast producer of Italian Wine Podcast. And as you know, the recording will be replayed in its entirety with some, I think, editing by Laika on the Italian Wine Podcast, wherever you get your pods. And I saw that we were up to 1,800 episodes with our newly acclimated Pietro Russo Master of Wine. So check that out. And I do have a small ask. If you can just give us a thumbs up, give us a follow, that would be really, really appreciated. Okay, so let's get on to our show today. Our guest mod today is, of course, Emilia. Emilia, ciao.
Ciao, Stevie. How are you?
Stai?
Bene. Congrats for becoming the queen of the universe. You're now the queen of the universe, right? That's what...
No, listen, it's just a job title. Nothing's really changed, to be quite honest. I'm doing the same old.
Congrats.
Listen, Emilia, on to our show. You've been working with wine, Italian fine wines, for about 20 years now, and you have been working with Querciabella, which is your current company in Chianti Classico. What is your official title?
The queen of the universe, exactly like yours. It's just a title, and I do everything. No, I'm just kidding. I'm the marketing director. I also oversee the business development.
How many people are there in Querciabella?
Not as many. I mean, office-wise, like people working in the office, we are probably 7 of us, 7 or 8 of us,
What about
including our sales director. Many more actually work in the cellar and in the vineyard. So we have a total team of 30 people.
but in the marketing and communications, it's you and how many others?
It's me. So it's me with a little bit of help from my friends.
Right.
Amazing.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. I still have to come and see you at Querciabella. I know it's on my to-do list. It just, there's just one of me.
But
People
let's
think
do
I
a
have a twin
gita.
sister, but
We should do a gita for all the ambassadors, whoever wants to come.
We have to organize. But Chianti is such a popular territory that everybody pretty much goes on their own. So organize the gita where, people don't get there by themselves necessarily. Like we went to a market and it was actually wonderful, absolutely fabulous.
This year, the consortium celebrates, of course, his 100 years anniversary.
Right, that I know, yes.
And it's also Querciabella's 50th vintage. 50. Big one.
24, 24.
The 24 is our 50th vintage. Yeah, since we started. Yeah, so you might as well come and visit us this year.
So, of course, we can chat all day, but let's get on to the show.
Exactly.
Because we have a guest. Her name is Serena Gusmeri. And tell us why you've chosen Serena as your favorite producer to be interviewed today.
To be honest with you, Serena is actually a very good friend of mine. So, as you know, I moved to Panzano in Chianti more or less a couple of years ago from London after spending, a few decades around the globe. And trust me, it's not easy to actually move into such a small place. It's very difficult to make connection especially aside work. So I actually decided to invite Serena for this talk because, as I said, she's a very good friend of mine. Serena and her family have been very welcoming, and they made us always feel at home. Of course, aside from the sentimental reason, I think that she's a very talented winemaker. I think that during the interview, she will like to point out that she prefers to work in the vineyards rather than in the cellar. And that's an approach that really resonates with me as well, because I have this flair for wines that are made in the vineyards as opposed to just technically executed in the cellar.
It's always, what is it the land or is it the man? Right? That discussion. But did you meet Serena before going to Chianti? Were you friends before?
No.
Or you met her there?
No. So actually we have a little to share. I promise it's going to be brief. So we actually met last year at the Chianti Classico collection in Florence, where everything happens, of course. And on the first night, there's always a dinner that is open to producer, to the media, to, trade, and so on. And
so you only met her a year ago?
Yeah, exactly.
Ah, okay. It sounded like you were friends for life. Okay.
No, but that's a very strange thing, because we obviously hooked up over dinner and we start chatting immediately. We both love talking a lot and tasting a lot of wines together. And she very kindly offered to give me a lift back to Chianti. So in the car, we were basically like talking, ha ha ha, laughing. And when we arrived back to Greve, I left her my business card so that we could keep in touch, because literally that was the first time we met. And I never heard since. For like 3 weeks, she basically ghosted on me.
Yeah, she didn't like you.
Not a sign. And I thought, that's another one of these Italian fancy winemakers, promises you the moon and then, abandons you. Literally on the side of the road. I said, okay, well, nothing too bad. After a few weeks, I feel like couple of weeks, let's say, I received actually an Instagram follow request. And it was, of course, Serena. I accepted, obviously, the follow. And I replied very angry, like, where did you disappear? I would have supposed that we made friends or whatever. No? And she replied with a screenshot of the business card that I left in her car that night. The problem is that it wasn't my business card, but it was my boss's business card. Yeah. At least there is an happy ending. We are still friends. We never stopped talking since. So
great. So we'll find out all about that and even more, because you're both very chatty from what I understand. So I'll give you some time.
Yeah.
But what are the learning objectives from the call that you will be doing with Serena today?
So I think a very interesting talking point could be how Serena arrived at Vecchie Terre di Montefili when she was quite a young winemaker, but the estate wasn't. So she took over a quite established estate in Chianti Classico, and she basically turned it around in less than a decade, transforming the winery, with a lot of intuition, with her enthusiasm, of course, with her skills and dedication, but also, I think, with a vision of vineyard-driven winemaking. And she's going to hopefully explain us better what she means by that. That really works well with making Sangiovese.
Okay, excellent. It's only 11:41 a.m. here, but
Wow.
I can still give myself a glass of drink, and I'll be enjoying your talk. So over to you. I will be muting myself and perhaps coming back towards the end of the show if there's any time.
Okay, thank you.
Vecchie Terre di Montefili.
Montefili.
It's a mouthful.
Or we can call it Montefili wines.
Okay, Montefili wines. Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye. Serena.
Here I
Ciao,
am.
Sere. Ciao,
Ciao,
Sere.
Amy. What a great beginning for their love story.
Absolutely. It's our long love story. So, Serena, my dear, I'm just going to say a few things about your biography that you very kindly shared with me in advance. So, you were born in Brescia, the north of Italy. So, we are both from the north of Italy, relocated in Chianti Classico, very happily. And you arrived in Montefili in 2015, right?
Right, summer 15.
You were pretty young. You were only 27, am I right?
No, come on. When I arrived in Montefili, I was 33. Yes, I was 27. In the south, 33. You think I'm younger?
Oh, wow. You're becoming younger by the day. You arrived when you were 33, right? My mistake. Bad. My bad.
I was 27 in the south.
Yeah, I think that I got mistaken with your Benevento enterprise. But so you arrive in Chianti Classico in Panzano. That's where Montefili is located. From projects in Franciacorta, which is quite close to your hometown, right? And then Benevento. That was your big thing before coming to Tuscany, right?
Absolutely.
Do you care to tell us a little bit about your journey, let's say the journey leading up to Montefili wines, we said that we're going to call it?
As you say, I was born in the north, so obviously in Brescia, the main well-known wines is the Franciacorta, and luckily I started with the sparkling. After 1 year and a half, my previous owner asked me to move in to Benevento, and I say, okay, Benevento is in Campania, but honestly, I don't know really well where it's located. So I took the map and I say, okay, it's in the middle of nothing, but I can go. So I went in summer 2009, I went to Benevento and I managed Benevento, this winery with 22 hectares, and another one small, very lovely winery in Ischia, always for the same family, with 4 hectares of vineyards. On that time, for 6 years, I take care the vineyards and the winery, everything from the roots to the cork. Before this, obviously, I studied in Italy, then I moved in Australia for an internship of 4 months. So I had the possibility to see different places and especially during the 6 years in the south, understand much better what's my idea about the winemaking, but first of all about the vineyard and what I want to do day after day to manage in the best way the vineyard. So that time was the first step to make the roots of my knowledge and my philosophy for working.
Yeah, it always strikes me as, you started obviously right after you graduated, you started to make wines under probably someone else's supervision. And then you had to move to Benevento, different region, different wines, as we know, different challenges. And you pretty much did everything yourself, which for me is quite impressive, So you went basically from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. That's what I meant. And that's, I think, that forged very well your character, your dedication, but also you're very strong-willed. Is that something that came with the job? Or?
Okay, I arrived in Benevento with my main winemaker of the sparkling winery, and he say, okay, I will stay with you for 3 days, then I go back. Okay, grazie. So I tried to learn everything because, I just always I was a junior winemaker. So that was a very challenge for me thinking about to do everything by myself. But I didn't think everything by myself. I had two very great men with me during that time. So honestly, I put myself in this big experience, in this challenge, but they give me everything to understand, to learn. And then obviously I try to do by myself step by step. So if we say from 0 to 100, yes, it's right, but I didn't make everything by myself. I consider what I did during this time was my attitude to stay with the colleague, with the team, to stay with the people, to learn about the place. And when you are a girl from the north of Italy, I was 27 when I moved, you know nothing about the south of Italy. Absolutely. You just know about reading the journals and nothing else. So that was an open mind for me, not only for my job, but even for my life. So that's what I think about my job. If you have an open mind, if you're ready to mix yourself with the community, you can take the best of that time. And so, yes, I did a lot, absolutely. And I did many things by myself, but not only by myself, with the team that I had.
And how long did you stay actually in Benevento?
I live in the south for 6 years till the summer 15.
Okay. And how did you get to Montefilli?
That's another funny story. Normally we have only funny story to say. So my importer, New York importer for my previous one in Benevento, Nicola, I met him 12 years ago. In summer 15, he called me and said, I will come on the island, in spring 15, say, I will come in the island. I want to meet you. And I said, probably I need to move because my husband is in Tuscany now. My husband, Davide, moved in Tuscany at the beginning of 15 for a new job. And I'm starting to look for a winery. Consider from Tuscany to Campania is quite a long trip every weekend. And so that was the time that I say, okay, I want to stay with my husband. So I started to look for a winery. In the meantime, Nicola called me. And so I told him my story and say, wait, I'm looking for a place, a winery. He's quite impressed with my two partners, with a couple of friends. I will come back shortly. And I say, okay, you come back shortly. It's quite not normal to find. And after 2 months, he called me and said, we found the place, but we're missing the winemaker. We need a winemaker. Would you like to see it? The winery is in Panzano. Okay, I will come. So I moved from Benevento just for a meeting. And I saw Montefilli, and I was honestly really, really impressed about the place, the position, and the beauty. And then we tasted some wines, and I consider Montefilli quite a very interesting place for me. I decided to move in summer 15. I moved from Benevento to Panzano, and then I started my new life in Tuscany.
But so, except for obviously the obvious marital reasons why to move to Tuscany, what did you find in Montefilli, that really made you decide to move once again, to come back?
The first work that I had with Nicola. When I came, I worked in Vigna Vecchia. This is one of my labels that I created. And I was really impressed to see this vineyard planted in 81, Sangiovese, with a very rocky soil. I've never seen so rocky soil like in Tuscany, in Chianti Classico that you can find. South of Italy, for me, was completely different. That vineyard impressed me so much. After that, we go around and work and see the different part of the property because every single vineyard has a different exposition. And that was like a feeling I consider that was something very special and unique to move to Montefilli to recreate a life of this winery after a quite complicated time. So that Vigna Vecchia, gave me the feelings to say, this could be a good new beginning for me to make a new life in Chianti Classico or a new experience.
I think that you mentioned once to me that you also had the chance to taste some of the old vintages of Montefilli,
yes.
Right? And that you find something that you really like, this kind of consistency and quite a fil rouge, a territorial fil rouge.
Right.
I think you said something like that last time we spoke. Was it 82? Vintage 82?
Yes, my year, that the 82, I choose the 82, was a Chianti Classico Riserva, and I still have impressed in my mind that wine, that Sangiovese. That 33 years old wine, and was still so dry, flowery, rich, freshness. The Chianti Classico impressed me so much about the potential of the Sangiovese in Montefiori. So I consider that Sangiovese like a flag of the possibility, what I was able to do in that place with the potential of the Sangiovese in this tiny and unique place like Montefiori is, honestly.
We had this chat last week about your vineyards, and you mentioned that possibly Montefiori is one of the highest vineyards in Panzano right now. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct. We have vineyard from 480 to the highest is 530 meters, and it's quite unique because the winery is in the middle and the vineyards are all around. And what we have is a mix of altitude, 3 different type of soils, and different age of the vineyard with exposition. So it's quite a happy combination.
Yeah, you mentioned about, Montefiori being obviously, as we said, in Panzano, but you have vineyards overlooking Montefiorale, which is also one of the Ugas of Chianti Classico, Sillano, which is again a very interesting, very ancient winemaking place in Panzano, I find out, Sillano, as well as the more traditional Concadoro, which is what Panzano used to be very renowned of. So different soils, of course, different geology. So what's your approach? So you're working with different terroirs, you're working with different microclimates as well. How do you make this work?
When I came in 15, I consider Montefiori like a cake. So I make 7 slices and I make 7 different fermentation. Why this approach? Because when I arrived in August 15, I was no one, I was lost and never no information about the place. So my approach was really easy. Every single vineyard to understand the possibility of the single parcel of the property. And I had the same approach year after year. So during the first 3 vintages, we recognize very different flavor attitude of Sangiovese in the single parcel. So after that, I suggest to the partner to make our study of the soil. So we collected the soil from every single vineyard, and we discovered that Montefiori was created during the glaciation with 3 different tanks that came up with the soil of Sillano, absolutely, the other part of the Concadoro with the Alberese and the Galestro and clay, and the Alberese from the Montefiorale coast. So that's quite unique because, as you know, Sangiovese is a great grape, able to express the soil where it's located. So that was the first step to consider to make single vineyard wine. So I'm still working every single vineyard like to make a single wine.
I know it's difficult to go into details. We don't have this much time as well. And we still have a lot of questions to go through. But what would you say is the difference between, let's say, the Sillano area, the Concadoro and Montefiorale? Very briefly. It can also be fresher, bolder Sangiovese expression or whatever comes to your mind, just to give us indication about different zone. Because you did a zonazione, right? You did a zonazione approach.
Yes, honestly, it's a small zonazione for a single property. Yes, we did our zonazione, right. If I think about the Montefiorale, that is really interesting, is what I obtained from that vineyard is quite a more rude Sangiovese with a very dirty, but dirty in a good things, a deepness, quite more funky Sangiovese, more wild Sangiovese from the Montefiorale with a very lovely freshness and mental taste. Instead, for example, the quote that I have from the Concadoro, that's the Chianti that I'm still using for the regular Chianti, is more flowery, more rich of red fruits, a very, very enjoyable Sangiovese. And for this reason, I use that Chianti with that Sangiovese for the regular Chianti. That's my idea, to have something very drinkable that you enjoy very well before this easy approach of that Sangiovese. Instead, from Sillano, where is located the amphitheater, the first vineyard, is the deepness. More deep, more dark fruit, very, very serious Sangiovese. So they are very different clothes for the 3 types of Sangiovese that I have.
Sillano is more like Alberese born soil.
Yes, that goes right. Honestly, Alberese, even if in that part, from the map that we had from the university, the geological map, is a quartzo feldspathico, is a quartz feldspathic quartz, quite complicated to
Thanks for translating that, because I wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Feldspathic quartz, right?
All right. Quite interesting. And except from, let's say, geological differences, what else, the peculiarities of these different areas and vineyards that you grow?
Italian Wine Podcast, brought to you by Mama Jumbo Shrimp.
After this first zonazione, we started to learn about the microelements inside of the soil and how the microelements move from the roots to the grapes. So every year we choose 4 or 5 vineyards and we study the quantities of every single microelement and in the soil, in the leaves, in the stems, in the bunches. That's really important because in this way we can understand how is the condition inside the soil. And then if we have the right quantity of potassium, whatever you want, in the grape, so we can understand I can manage every single vineyard like a single child with the necessary, for example, they will cover crop, whatever you want. After that, we start always in 19 to study in one vineyard year after year the white flowers and the insects who live in the vineyard. These other 2 elements are really important to know about the biodiversity inside the vineyard and the micro system eco that we have in every single vineyard of Montefiore.
Yeah, so it's almost like you work by layers. So you start with the geological by studying the soils, the altitude, let's say, the position of the vineyard as well. And then you went deeper into studying the nutrients, deficiencies, or, what are really, as I said, the nutrients and the substances that you can find in different soils and how they help the vine grows, but also biodiversity. So it's almost like you try to give an index of biodiversity by measuring how healthy and how varied life inside the vineyard is. And I think that's a very important thing that we are learning nowadays in viticulture, especially how you cannot consider the vineyard just on its own, but you need to understand which are the interactions and the relationships with the natural environment. Obviously, we spoke about this. We have a similar approach also at Querciabella as well. And that's what really resonates with me, and I'm sure with many of the ambassadors that will listen and many of the listeners that will get on this podcast. So biodiversity being, as I said, an index also of how healthy a vineyard is, how resilient, let's say. But it doesn't stop there, because by identifying different biodiversity inside a vineyard, it's almost like saying, the grapes that grow in that vineyard are going to deliver a different expression of wines. And I think that, as you pointed out very well, Sangiovese, it's a great territorial vector. I think we are very lucky here in Chianti Classico to be able to work with such a grape. It's giving very interesting insights on winemaking anyway. So I think that you told me something that I really liked about a very specific flower that grows in one of your vineyards, and now that's an indication of a very specific microclimate, isn't it?
Right, absolutely. We found it in one vineyard, the wild orchid. If you've never seen this flower, please ask a Google, because you will see a very, very great flower. It's super nice. And it's super nice not only because it's nice to see, but even because it's an index about the quality of the soil. Consider the wild orchid is quite a very delicate flower, so normally it's quite complicated to see this flower, to find this flower in the vineyard, because if the soil is too compressed, if you have not enough micro oxygenation, the conditions are not good for this flower. Instead, in Montefiore, in the last 5 years, we found many wild orchids in different vineyards. So it's quite a great result for us to consider about the purity of the soil. And for example, in another vineyard, with the botanic, the guy who came to count and recognize the flower, recognized in Vigna del Bosco 62 different flowers, and 2 of them are typical of the Mediterranean area.
That's
and
right.
It was really interesting because Cristiano, the guy, teach me that probably the condition, the microclimate inside of this vineyard, because it's the only one with bush on the border, for this reason it's called Vigna del Bosco. Probably the bush make like a control temperature inside of the vineyard, and we had 62 different types. Of 2 of them are typical of the Mediterranean climate. So quite unique to think about the highest vineyard in 550 meters with 2 Mediterranean flowers. So that means give me very important information about the condition, the quality of the soil. What I say usually is think about us. If you eat junky food for a week, I don't know how do you feel after a week. And it's pretty much the same for the vineyard because everything starts into the soil with the quality of the soil, the microelements, and what we have, the insects, the pollinators, the predators. So everything is connected. And so if we take care of the life of the vineyards, the quality, obviously we can think about something different in the life of the vines and the quality of the grapes at the end.
Exactly, absolutely agree. We were saying during the introduction that you have a vineyard-specific winemaking that you do. So once you have obviously identified which are the peculiarities of each vineyards, the expression that they can bring to the wine and so on and so forth, you obviously move into the cellar, and that's where obviously the magic happens as well. I'm very curious about one thing that we had discussed already, actually, which is obviously your background was in white winemaking before getting to Chianti Classico. You didn't have much experience with red grapes, and I think possibly none with the Sangiovese grape, coming from obviously Franciacorta as well as Benevento, right? So how that type of background, working mainly with white grapes, has helped you bring forward a more precise and punctual type of winemaking? Is there a connection? Is there something that you learned?
Yes, I've never made a red wine before coming to Montefiore. The Sangiovese is the first
Sempre
red
from
grape.
0 to 100, Serena. Always from
That's
0
my
to
life.
100.
That's the story of my life. Yes, I just saw a little bit of Pinot Noir in Franciacorta for the sparkling wine, but you can think just to make a white for the sparkling, nothing else. So yes, sure, when probably I had a completely open mind to work with the Sangiovese, but with a background of white grapes. And what I think now, after 8 vintages, sure, I use my white making knowledge to approach the red fermentation and the red vinification. Why? Because I consider the white grapes, it's very interesting. It's a challenge because you have to consider the timing when you pick the grapes, the temperature. You have to be very careful, very delicate. You have to be take care every single step with the oxygenation because, you can have problem in a while about the oxidation with the juice or after. I've always used a big barrel for the Greco, for example, because Greco is a false white wine, so it's great grapes. And that experience gave me the sparkling winery, sure, and Benevento for a long time, the base to approach all the fermentation with a very light touch. To not the red grapes is able to be very easy to manage in the winery, but what I had in my feelings and what I do in Montefiore now is to be very soft even during the manage of the fermentation of the red and to not manage too much the grapes to try to protect the expression of the vineyard and the season too.
So you would call yourself a low interventionist?
Less is better.
Less is better. True.
Yes, that's my approach. I'm quite boring. Yes, I know I'm quite an old winemaker style, I think. In the winery, I do a very, very easy job. I think about every single vineyard that I manage in the winery. I make a huge job during the season, but then when I pick the grapes, I approach every single vineyard in the same way. It sounds bad, but it's very easy to understand. I have a single recipe for all the vineyard, for the parcel. So what I want to obtain is the results of the Sangiovese connected with different type of soil and the season, the year. In the winery, what I change is only at the end, the barrel size. So during the fermentation, if you come to Montefiore, you will see the same approach in every single tank. Spontaneous fermentation, very soft approach, and never change. I have about the temperature because, if you change the temperature or you change the contact skin, obviously, you could have very interesting results. And don't say it's bad. No, please. But what I want to tell you is the story of a small place where I try to make a very easy approach in the winery to express the unique soil that I have in the part of the property.
At the moment at Montefili, you make how many labels? 7?
Right now we have 2 Chiantis, the Chianti and the Gran Selezione, and 4 number bottles, so 6 labels.
Okay, of which possibly the most famous are Bruno di Rocca and Anfiteatro, right?
Right, absolutely. These 2 wines are the flags of the property for a long, long time. Montefili was created in 1979, so Anfiteatro and Bruno tell the story of Montefili, right?
Because Anfiteatro, we said, is an old vineyard of Sangiovese.
Yes, Anfiteatro is the first Sangiovese planted in 1975.
I see. While Bruno di Rocca, which I think most people might know about, when they think of Montefili, I think most of the people would be thinking of Bruno di Rocca.
Yes, Bruno di Rocca instead is the only Cabernet that I have. Luckily, I have only 1.5 hectares of Cabernet Sauvignon. I'm more connected with the Sangiovese, I have to be honest, but I rediscovered the Cabernet in Montefili. And the Cabernet in high altitude with the poor soil, rich of rock. It's quite interesting because the Cabernet in Montefili has a very different taste and flavor that normally we think about the Cabernet. This vineyard was planted instead in 82. So it's a very small part considered. Now I make Bruno is a blend with 15% of Sangiovese from the regular Chianti, from the youngest Sangiovese that we have. And yes, absolutely, Bruno di Rocca was very well known for this unique taste, quite unusual thinking about the Cabernet.
Absolutely. As you know, we also do a Cabernet Sauvignon led blend with Sangiovese at Querciabella, Cesca Martina, and we really have to do some tasting side by side, because I think that what you said about the Cabernet Sauvignon and the type of maturation that it gets in Chianti is super interesting, mostly because of the soil, especially if it grows on quite a rocky, well-draining type of soil. But for me, it's the microclimate, it's the sun, is the light exposure during the day that's really intensifies the maturation of the grapes, but without, let's say, losing on the acidity, which again, it's is an asset that we have here in high altitude vineyards in Chianti Classico, let's say. And freshness, I think, is something that very much resonates with your winemaking style. Because every time I taste your wines, let's say, the thing that obviously strikes me the most is the freshness, is this vibrancy that we can find in your Sangiovese. And I think it comes, of course, from your type of winemaking. It's being very true to the Sangiovese grape variety as well, because it's obviously naturally bringing a lot of acidity to its wine, but as well as the terroir. So we always go back, obviously, to what we were discussing at the beginning about the vineyards and different soils. Is that something that you recognize, like being your biggest asset as we move to warmer or more erratic type of vintages?
Honestly, even if we are having warmer some seasons, especially summer, but even the spring, because I think about this February, we had no chilly temperatures. So year after year, we see these huge changes. Montefili is still living quite a happy condition because we are very lucky with the fresh nights that we have. So normally we pick the grapes 10 days later to the lower part of the Chianti Classico, and we still see the differences with the other condition. I'm sure the rocky soil with the old vineyards too permit us to maintain and to not have any huge stress condition. Even last year or 2 years ago, last year we picked all our grapes. It was the best results after a very complicated season. But even in the 2022, we didn't have any problem with the dry, with the no water. So yes, I mean, that's the challenge of the future. But what I think about in the beginning when I came 8 years ago and now, finally in the last 3 years, I see the results about the job, the focus on the vineyard, inside the vineyard. So when you have the numbers, the results, the study, when you make scientific results, when you make scientific studies like us, and you have the infos, you're able to manage every single vineyard like a single life, and thinking about how to support and improve the quality inside of the vineyard. So that's really important for me, and what I think that's really important for all of us for the future is a sustainable approach, not only thinking about the wines, but even if I'm thinking about our private lives, to an ethic way to work, to be able to know much better what is under our feet and the story, the place where we are. That's really important. When I'm in Montefiore every day, I'm always very in love with the place because it's so nice and beautiful. I know that I have a great responsibility to protect and to improve the life of the place.
Absolutely. I think that winemaking is a lot about that as well. It's not only about expressing a given terroir, it's also elevating the origin of the grapes. Is giving like a territory just one more reason why to be better, to be honest with you. It adds value. That's what I'm trying to say. I think that winemakers are really good at adding value. I think something that could be said about other agricultural professions, but I think it very much, shows when it comes to winemaking. You really have this responsibility and, the pleasure actually, elevating.
The perfect, right, the perfect meaning is elevating, absolutely, because it's quite an honor to have the possibility to do this. It's an honor, it's a talent, it's a responsibility, but it's, yes, in winemaking process, you can make the best after an hard work to express, to tell you the story, and then you can make like a blossom that you can do in the winery. So it's a mix of condition. Obviously, the vineyard, then you have to be able to put yourself inside in the winery and feel part of the whole project and all the philosophy to tell you something unique year after year.
So talking about terroir, I think this could be our last question before we leave it open to other people's questions. So you trained in Franciacorta, so you did sparkling wines, then you moved to the south of Italy, to Benevento, and you did the whites. Then obviously here in Chianti Classico, you worked Sangiovese and the other reds. If you could choose, if you could pick like one terroir or one grape that you would love to work with in the future, what would that be?
So every time when I speak with my husband, I say, when I will be old, I want to be in Friuli or in Sicily.
I knew that.
And when I met you, that was, okay, that's a message for me. You are from Friuli, so you know this. It's not a joke, that's true. I fall in love with Friuli because when I finished working in Benevento, I took a trip for 5 days for myself, like a party trip to say bye, start with the new life in Tuscany. And I was really impressed because I traveled, I came in Friuli, obviously on the border. And that area for me, it's quite interesting. Obviously, I came back to the white grapes. Probably, yes. I started with the white and I will die with the white grapes, probably in Friuli or Sicily. I'm really impressed with the soil. I went to the internal part and then obviously in Etna. And I consider these are very interesting. Even if I'm in love with Campania, there are so many unknown areas, Italian winemaking areas. So that's good. When you spoke about the market, I really understand because, Chianti Classico is very well known. There are so many well-known areas. But Italy is so rich of traditional grapes. If you go to Cilento, if you go in the smaller places of Avellino, so zona di Irpinia area, but in Benevento with the Falanghina, the white grapes for me are always very, very interesting. Then who knows about the future?
Of course, we're going to make plans because Friuli needs young, talented winemakers. I also know a couple of people there. Something that you said about Chianti Classico, I think it's something that we both found when we actually moved here. And correct me if I'm wrong, working in such a world-famous appellation give us a lot of leverage. Every time we travel, every time we have to present the wine, talking about Chianti Classico is very easy for people to relate to. They understand, they can put it on the map, they can Probably they've visited or they've been spending their holidays in a villa here in Chianti. But on the other hand, I always feel that there is so much competition in terms of quality winemaking, especially in the latest years. Almost everyone in Chianti Classico make really good wines. Majority of people work with Sangiovese. So, as I said, it's on one hand, it's kind of easier, if you like, in the wine world to be working within such a famous appellation. On the other hand, I think there is so much tradition, so much competition. It's not easy. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not easy. You really need to be able to stand out.
Totally agree, because when I came 8 years ago, I was a woman from the north of Italy, moving from the south, never made the red wines, never worked with the Sangiovese, and in a very historical winery, in such a great area like the Chianti Classico. So I felt totally the responsibility of this challenge, absolutely, and the opportunity too, because I was honored to see myself in this place, in these vineyards, but I felt totally the responsibility to be able to tell a story with our approach, with our philosophy. That was great because Chianti Classico is so rich of great place, different approach, different philosophy, and it's so very well known. So when you are very well known, you have a double responsibility to protect the story of the place and to maintain the quality and make an ethical job too. So there are so many different elements to consider that I consider when I came and I started to work in Montefiore.
So we spoke about, obviously, sustainability and how you practice a sort of integrated viticulture. There is a question actually about that from John, who's writing us here on the chat. Are there any new projects that you might like to introduce in the vineyard that have to deal with, sustainable agriculture?
I don't. Thank you for the question. We are still speaking and thinking about to improving some system inside the vineyard, for example, to sustain the flowering, the white flowering, because, for example, in some vineyard we noticed that we are missing some flowers. So, for example, it depends when you cut the cover crop, especially in the spring season. So right now, honestly, think about big projects, make something great. Sorry for the not perfect word, that we made in the last 8 years. No, but now we are focusing in peculiar part of every single vineyard that what we have to make to improve the single condition of the vineyard. I don't know if I answer rightly your question.
I think you did. Oh, there's a great question from Yvonne.
We love your question. Thank you.
I'm not. I think she's asking you, but she could have asked me as well the same question. So if we both eventually might go. So if this might go back, is me. Which grapes you would like to work with, and in which area of Friuli? So if it is me, it's, of course, Schioppettino in Cialla. Ecco, I say the name. I love Schioppettino, and it's the grape that I'm the most attached to. That's my favorite grape. First vintage of Schioppettino was actually my birth year. And I know a really great producer there that is one of my favorites, let's say. But what about you, Serena?
Ribolla. And even the Piccolito is quite interesting.
Oh, wow. Please don't share this with the people of Querciabella, because I love my
Yes, right.
I'm working on that right now, writing a message as we speak.
I know you are.
So I do have one question for you, actually for both of you. I'm looking at your website and I think it's very comprehensive. I like it. It's very useful. It's very smooth. And then you have this section about points and awards, which is interesting. You've organized it in a very functional way. And I was wondering, how important are the points and scores and awards today? Be honest. I won't tell any of the other people. Hello? Is anybody there?
I'm trying to think about a diplomatic answer. So it depends. It's very
Okay, all right. That's not an answer.
it's
I'm
good.
sorry.
I think that they still bear some importance on the trade, especially. On consumer side, I think there are different dynamics that are kicking in. They are stimulating people buying the wines or developing, let's say, a sort of relationship with the brand. But to be honest with you, there are still some reviewers, the famous one, that can move volumes, especially in the US, but also in the UK. Italy, not so much anymore, maybe. But as I said, there are different dynamics that kick in, like social media, of course, digital media, the events that you participate, the events that you organize, winery visits, hospitality, again. So it's a little bit of everything.
What about you, Serena?
Think about Montefiore, we start to make everything. And so when we restart, to make. I made my job for the pleasure to make my job, never think about the points. But obviously, I was really surprised to feel myself like no one in the middle of the Chianti Classico and to receive very good points from the most important American journalist. And I was really impressed because I never thought about this because I'm a technical, so I do my job and that's it. And that was impressed me so much because I never thought about the consequence that obviously means to be in Opera One, for example, the points of people send us an email because they read a review on a website, very interesting about Montefiore. So yes, it depends how we approach this. That's for me the key. I'm not stressed about the idea to have always every year high points because every year is different and not all the wines are the same. But I work a focus to make good job, good wines. And obviously people, not all, but many people are still very interested, especially as Emilia say, in the United States market, to read something interesting and new, good new release about wines and so on. So yes, this point is always a big argument threat with something very important for the market again. We can't say, I don't care. That's stupid, honestly. I don't say I don't care because it's stupid.
Of course, you are at Opera Wine. Of course you care.
But come on. No, there isn't a funny story because I received the email the 1st of April from Opera Wine in 2023. And then when I received the email, I thought that is a joke.
April Fool's joke.
Yes, right. April Fool's joke. Pesce d'Aprile. And when I received the email, I say, it's not possible. I can't believe. And I remember I called Nick and I say, Nicola, did you receive the same email? Yes, we are in Opera Wine. Oh my goodness. Because I never thought that in a very short time, in 8 years, we were able to obtain a great tool like this that we are having. So I really honored and I recognize that make me happy, absolutely. So I can't say I don't care. It's stupid. But when I make my job for the pleasure to be in the vineyard, to be in the winery. Then obviously when I see these other results, I'm more happy.
Yeah, well, someone's got to sell the wines, right? Even if you make the greatest wines and no one knows about it.
Completely.
Listen, okay, so having said that, thank you very much to the both of you. Very informative, and I love the energy of these two women in the wine industry from Chianti. By the way, speaking of social media, your link to your Instagram and Facebook on homepage they do not work, so you might want to look into that. But that's just me. I get obsessed about social media, as everybody knows. So thanks again, and hope to see you both very soon. I'm signing off because I have other shit to do here. Thank you very much, you guys. Until the day after tomorrow, then.
Yep.
Ciao, ragazzi.
Ciao.
Grazie.
Grazie, boy.
While you drink, don't forget this thing.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.